Big tech is profiting from our children by robbing them of their innocence.
For over 30 years, we've seen pornography addiction go up. Now, 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds are on the cell phones and they're downloading pornography, and it's hurting them earlier than ever in world history.
And it sets them on a trajectory of life that is harmful to them. They feel defeated, depressed, isolated, and they're frustrated and confused as to why their relationships aren't fulfilling. It's only going to escalate because our children are being groomed to be sexual predators themselves. One of those examples would be a little girl who was exposed to pornography at a neighbor's house when she was around 6 years old and began to act out sexually on her infant sibling. It escalated to the point that she was stealing iPhones from other parents and teachers' purses at school, and they would continue to find her acting out with other children. So that was one case that was just extremely disturbing because this little girl was sitting on my couch, her feet weren't hitting the floor, and she was saying, you should be able to have sex with whoever you want to, whenever you want to. I don't see what the problem is with pornography.
This is a pivotal moment in human history where technologies drastically changed the environment our kids are growing up in. I was first exposed to porn at the age of 8, and by the time I was out of middle school, I had seen just about every genre of porn there was, and I wasn't the only kid doing this. It was a normal part of our teen culture. In retrospect, it is clear that it was affecting our behavior and ultimately our sexuality, leading to a time when I went to have sex with a girl I found extremely attractive, but when we went to have sex, I couldn't feel any arousal, excitement, emotion. A couple months ago on a recovery site, I did a search for suicide, and I got back 26 pages of results of young guys contemplating killing themselves because they've been screwed up by pornography and they're not sure if they're ever going to recover.
All the scientists will tell you that watching pornography, getting addicted to pornography in particular, changes your brain in the same way alcoholism changes your brain or addiction to gambling changes your brain.
Part of the problem is when someone watches pornography for a period of time, their brain becomes desensitized and they seek harder types of material. Now people aren't wanting the images of Playboy anymore. They want images of extreme violence found on Pornhub.
It started out with me Googling body parts, and then it would escalate to a couple guys, one girl, or gangbangs. And I would search for things that were shocking, like very abusive and misogynistic stuff, or that created anxiety. So I would search for things that would give my brain a bigger neurochemical rush, because I needed more excitement to feel the same level of arousal. And so you can imagine a young 12-year-old getting off to very abusive type porn to where when they do get in a real intimate relationship, you start to desire that.
And 80% of pornography today contains some form of violence. The 8-year-old boys are learning, this is how I treat women. And the 8-year-old girls are learning, this is how I'm supposed to be treated. That's their sex education. That's what's going on in your schools.
What scares me and what I try to get people to understand is that every future lawyer, doctor, policeman, fireman is being raised on a diet of pornography, and that should terrify all of us.
At one time in my life, I was with the United States Department of Justice. When I started that job, I read so many letters from prisoners. One sticks in my mind. In prison for a long 20 or 30-year sentence because he had molested his own child. And what he said is, I started with Playboy magazine and it wasn't satisfying enough after a while. I always had to have harder and more deviant material. And finally I landed on child pornography and ultimately molested my own child, he said. He said, do something about it so other men don't end up like I am.
It's not that we have suddenly many more pedophiles in our society. It's that we have habituated users to having sex with children because of pornography.
We know there's an epidemic of child-on-child sexual abuse. And we know it's being triggered and caused by hardcore pornography coming into almost everybody's home.
all you need to do is talk to any school counselor, and they will tell you about the increase in peer-on-peer sexual abuse. Something else that I've seen a lot more of is an increase in sexting. There is a lot of pressure on girls to share nudes, and that is something that, to me, is definitely related to pornography.
40% of teens believe that sending nudes to someone is acceptable. 1 in 3 teens have seen unconsensually shared nudes, and those are often ending up on social media or on pornography sites.
My friend had informed me of someone that we went to high school with. He had this porn account on Pornhub, and she found the first 2 videos he ever posted were of me. When I found out about the videos, I went to the woods and threw up. It was like the most lost, confused state I've ever felt. And I was like, I don't know if I can go on. I didn't agree to this. How do these websites not ask, is she okay with this? I had reached out to one of the websites asking for them to take it down because I didn't give consent. You should be able to send one email saying, I did not give consent, and they should take it down instantly. Instead, it's still up on that site. I've been virtually raped by millions of people around the world that I don't know. And now I have to live with that the rest of my life.
The World Wide Web is the playground of the 21st century. The question becomes is, when do you let your child on the playground by themselves walking around? If we have an offender asking a child to perform a sexual act on camera and send it to them, they have in fact committed the crime of manufacturing child sex abuse material. And those offenses are taking place on a regular basis, especially with the portability of electronic devices. In a lot of circumstances, we're seeing solicitation cases that are starting to take place right around the age of 10. So it's really not a question of if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. And when it happens, are they prepared?
A recent poll of 2,000 teens found that nearly 75% of them had received pornographic direct messages from strangers on Instagram, even if they had a private account. We started an Instagram account with 2 photos and tried to mimic the behavior of an average teen girl. Within a week, we had dozens of men sending us images of their genitals, telling us they were horny, and sending us hardcore pornography through direct messages.
My son was victimized in his own bedroom on his iPhone. He was 13, thinking that he was talking to a 16-year-old girl. Basically, a predator took multiple Snapchat videos and put them together to make one video, and it surfaced online. How we became known of the situation was I got a phone call from just an acquaintance that her niece, had told her that my son was in his room and he was telling her that he was suicidal and that he wanted to kill himself due to the material that had been floating around school and the kids were passing around. There had been 167,000 views. We met with this federal agent and he said that this is not your fault and this is classic. You're a victim of a child trafficking situation. I reached out to Twitter. We basically had going back and forth with Twitter. Twitter in writing said, we have viewed the material and this does not break our policies. So I, as a parent, don't understand. I mean, a predator molesting a child is against the law. It's not okay. And how is it okay for tech companies to say, well, we viewed the material and it doesn't break our policies? It's just mind-blowing to me, and we need to fight to protect them. I want to be a part of anything I can do so that this never happens to another child again.
I think a lot of parents still have that stranger danger mentality or are afraid to let their kids walk down the street when they don't realize that their children may be being trafficked in their own bedroom. And it is critical for them to understand when they are on social media platforms or on gaming platforms, anywhere, any device or any platform where there's an interactive feature where children can be talking to other kids, strangers, and adults, there will be grooming and there will be trafficking.
children are being recruited and groomed for sexual exploitation in the video games they play, like Fortnite and Minecraft, in the online communities that they participate in, like TikTok and Instagram. These are parts of their digital life that are being co-opted very intentionally by predators that are seeking to exploit them sexually.
There have been cases throughout the country of kids taking their own lives and self-harming because of the choices that they made early on with the internet and the images that they traded, only to find out that they traded with an online predator. A lot of parents will tell us that they just never thought it could happen to their child, and yet they're usually sitting across the table from an investigator who's explaining that the person that they've been involved in an online relationship with has been arrested for soliciting minors.
Child sexual abuse material is astronomical right now. Nearly 70 million images have been reported, and that's just what's been reported to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. There is a insatiable hunger for this type of evil now, and it is directly a result of this mass social experiment on our country called pornography.
This problem is becoming unworkable. We're at the point where we can't solve it. The reason that it has exploded to this level is because there has been no enforcement of the law against this industry entirely, and there's been no enforcement of the law against the internet. There is the rule of law on the internet, and we just have to enforce those laws.
The majority of pornography is not protected by the free speech clause of the First Amendment. That is a myth. That is not true.
When a parent sees that their son is addicted to pornography, they're looking to, how does this happen? Well, one reason it happens is because the Justice Department doesn't do its job and put that pornographer who's operating illegally out of business.
There's the old metaphor of you see people floating by in the stream drowning, and so you pull those people out, and you spend all your effort doing that when all you have to do is walk up the stream and find out who's pushing them in the stream to begin with. Just get rid of that guy and you take care of the problem. Get rid of the pornography. Demand it of your local officials. Demand it of your federal officials that they actually deal with this issue.
Fighting against the porn industry and getting porn out of kids' phones and out of kids' computers is really one of those things where we are swinging at the roots of many problems because it affects our whole culture. As parents, we need the help of industries that are responsible, like Google, like the government, to help us protect our children. It's not enough to just say, oh, it's the parents' problem. They should just handle this and watch their kids every second of the day. We cannot do this alone.
Internet safety is everybody's responsibility because we all know that there are people on the internet that are looking to exploit others, whether they're children or not.
Even diligent parents are overwhelmed by the digital choices their children are facing. Tech companies will tell us that protecting kids is a parent's responsibility, but it currently takes over 30 steps to properly set up parental controls on an iPhone.
We have waited since the dawn of the internet age for tech companies to protect children online, and they have not stepped up.
They know how to do it, and they have the money to do it right. Big tech and small tech companies are complicit, knowing what they're doing and profiting from it. They are profiting from the deep misery of these victims and survivors. That is what is most outrageous here.
Tech companies have the capability to reduce sexual exploitation and eliminate child sexual abuse material, but they don't do nearly enough, and such content is rampant on mainstream platforms.
Big tech was not built to protect our children. In fact, they profit from our children. And by and large, they have been getting away with it.
So what we have is a public health crisis. The widespread use of porn is affecting people in negative ways emotionally, mentally, and physically.
Pornography is normalizing a culture of abuse, a culture of rape, a culture of sexual objectification, and this is not a society we want to live in. Corporations, tech companies have to do what is necessary to put protective barriers in place for our kids. We are at a tipping point and we're seeing victories, and we can do it.
I dream of a movement of moms who are going to reclaim this culture for our children. And we can. Moms are so powerful, and I want to see that Mama Lion rage used to go against big tech, to speak to our legislators. I believe that we can bring back a culture of innocence and wonder in childhood, but we need parents to really lead this charge because nobody else will.
We brought a mom to meet with us with Instagram, and as a result, Instagram heard and they changed their policy to no longer allow adults who are strangers to direct message kids. Why were they even allowed to do that before? And how did we win? Because of moms. When moms get together, we have changed in the last year. Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat, all three made massive changes to the safety protocols on their platforms.
We can demand that our federal laws against pornography be enforced. We can demand that major corporations fix things so that our kids aren't being exposed to hardcore violent pornography within seconds of looking at something innocently on their platforms.
So start a movement of mothers in holding these corporate abusers accountable.